Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Hawks, and this is Just Ask Children's Answers from the Experts. So let's talk about how parents can help when their kids may be experiencing mental health concerns. There's a number of strategies that I want to talk to you about today that can be helpful. The first and most important thing that you can do as a parent to support your child's mental health is to talk with them. And I would encourage you to think about this as just an overall family culture of regular check-ins, bringing up difficult topics with your kids and asking them how they're doing. One of the most common questions I get from parents is a worry that if they ask their kids if they're thinking about suicide, that might somehow be planting that idea in their head. And we know that the opposite is true. Please be reassured that asking your child if they're thinking about suicide is only going to open up an important conversation that you can have with your child and make sure that they're doing okay. And that if they're not, you can start to have a conversation about what you can do to help support them. Other things to be thinking about when you are trying to create this family culture of openness and communication is to be present. Put down the phones. Don't try to multitask when you're having these conversations. Just fully immerse yourself in the interaction that you're having with your child in that moment. And follow their lead. Ask open-ended questions. Don't come in necessarily with preconceived ideas and ask them very targeted questions. Just open it up by saying something like, "How are you doing?" And just see where they go with that, because a lot of times where we think as parents they might go is not in fact where they lead us. Other things you can think about is normalize and empathize. And what I mean by that is normalize that difficult things happen. Adversity is a normal part of life, and it's okay to have really difficult emotions that come alongside with that. It's okay to not always be okay. And once you start to have that conversation, try to infuse empathic statements throughout. And empathic statements can sound something like, "It sounds like you're feeling blank," and insert whatever emotion that you think they might be feeling. So it sounds like you're feeling really sad that you went back to school this week and your friend group doesn't seem to want to spend as much time with you. The great thing about empathizing is that you don't actually have to get the emotion right. Your kids will correct you if you get it wrong. But the important thing is that you're demonstrating that you're trying to connect with them and understand their experience. And then finally, empower them. Have a conversation that allows you to focus on the things that they actually have control over. There's a lot of things in kids' lives that they don't have control over, and it can feel really overwhelming if we focus on those. But there's always something in a situation that a youth can feel some control over, and that can help them to feel more empowered by what's going on. There's a lot of things that we can also do as parents when it comes to just the way that we're parenting our kids and how it can impact the mental health and well-being of our kids. So the number one thing that we can do as parents is spend quality time together. Similar to what I talked about before, when you're spending quality time together, there's just going to be natural opportunities to check in and to continue to form those connections with your children. The number one way that we can motivate our kids is by the ways that we use our attention. Attention is the most powerful reinforcer that you have in your back pocket as a parent. So use that to your advantage to try to help motivate your kids to do the kinds of things that they need to do. And I like to think about this as catching them being good. So anytime that your child is engaging in the kinds of activities that you want to see them doing, notice that. Say something about it and really highlight how proud you are of them or how impressed you are with what they're doing. And the really cool thing is that the more you do that, the more often your kid is going to want to engage in those same behaviors because they like being noticed for the great things that they're doing. It's important when we're thinking about praise to really pay attention to what we're praising and try to praise efforts versus outcomes. In today's day and age, we are so focused on achieving and excelling, and our kids are actually feeling a lot of increased anxiety because of how much pressure that has been put on them to be the best at everything. And one of the ways that we can help to kind of fight back against that cultural norm is by not focusing so much on getting the straight A report card. It's on engaging in the learning experience and praising them for just immersing themselves in learning and not focusing so much on the grades themselves. Another question I've been asked a lot over the course of the pandemic is how and when to set limits, because as parents, we have felt so much guilt about the ways that the pandemic has negatively impacted our kids that we've been tempted to want to give them a lot more leeway because we're trying to compensate for all the things that we feel terrible that they've had to lose out on. And as a result, kids have had less boundaries and less structure over the last 2 years, and it's really understandable why that's happened. But I want you to know as a parent, it's okay to set limits with your kids. And in fact, that is a really important strategy to help promote the overall well-being of your child. So set limits on screen times, for example. It's okay to say, no, you can't spend 14 hours on your tablet today. You can set those limits and feel good about the fact that you're actually making things better for your child and their emotional well-being. And finally, use effective consequences. Similar to having consistent and regular expectations, it's okay to use consequences when your child is making choices that you don't agree with. The great thing about consequences is that we can use both reinforcement and consequences, or what we oftentimes refer to as punishers, punishments like timeout or taking away a privilege. The best way to motivate behavior is through reinforcement. So try to use those rewards to really promote engaging in good behaviors and use privileges to be able to motivate your kids' behaviors. But kids are inevitably going to engage in bad choices. And when that happens, use effective consequences like timeout for younger kids or taking away privileges for older kids. Here are a couple of resources that parents might want to take a look at. There's some really great apps out there. There's also important community resources to be aware of, including Children's Hospital Colorado, who has the entire continuum of mental health services available for your children. And then finally, there's a website called childmindinstitute.org that's got a lot of really great information on it for parents and helping to support their children's well-being.